And then, speaking of wobbly seasons, let's talk about North Melbourne to cap things off because they take on Essendon, and the Dons just put an absolute hurting on the Roos there at Marvel. It's just, man, this is you were kind of expecting a game like this. If you really tuned in and you weren't expecting anything different than this, I really just kind of have to question you because it was almost a non-contest until like maybe a blip in the fourth of life for the North Melbourne Roos. But besides that, there was a whole lot going on. The Dons put up 11 goals in the first half with 13 different goal scorers in this game. And so that kind of helps to prove to me that Essendon, I mean, to be fair, they're only 4 points out of the top eight, which is crazy to think about, especially considering they were your wooden spoon favorite at the beginning of the year. I remember that, and you might be a little off on that one, but of course you're right with most of the other things that you talk about. So it's really, I'll forgive you for this one, Donnie.
Uh, I,
ah,
I I said Essendon had a chance to be wooden spooners just because of the fact they had lost several really good stars over the last when losing Danaher
well,
and
what's
and
crazy
not
about that though, they've lost these stars, but I still really like where they are as a team at this point, considering all that they lost and what they have right now. This is a young team. This is a team that's building to some really promising years. I think in the next 3-4 years, this is definitely going to be, if they're not getting closer now, 2 or 3 years, they're going to be finals contenders. They're not going to be it now. The Roos, not going to be. It's going to be a while for the Roos, if we're being honest, from what we're seeing right now. But if you're an Essendon fan, yeah, no, they're probably not going to make the finals this year, but that's no big deal because if you're looking from your expectations going to the season and where they're going to finish at the end of the season, albeit we still have 13 rounds left. But this is a bright young team, and there's a lot of promise to them. And I'd be excited if I was a fan, not for this season, but for the coming seasons.
Yeah, I agree. And yes, it stinks to lose Danaher, but you get the number 8 overall pick and you draft Nick Cox, who has been absolutely lighting it up, playing great as a young player. You get Archie Perkins in that draft as well. They drafted really, really well.
Yeah, right. Got to
There,
give a
there,
lot of credit to their front office.
yeah, there is no way to argue that Essendon took a really bad situation of losing Danaher, losing a few stars, but they got draft picks in the point where, and they hit
Mm-hmm.
home runs with Nick Cox and with Archie
Yeah,
Perkins.
great
And
point,
when
Donnie. It's one thing to have these
we,
high draft picks. It's another thing to hit on them. I mean, we see that when I looked most into the NFL draft, a lot of teams they have these top draft picks. It's kind of hard to actually get a star from them. A lot of times, just a whole lot goes into it. So, to your point, Donnie, a lot of credit to Essendon.
yes, and this is a team. This is a team. I said it earlier, and I'm going to agree with it. Even if Essendon doesn't make the finals, this Essendon team reminds me a lot of Sydney. They've got a ton of young talent. They're in games.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they blow out North Melbourne in this, but they've played some of the better teams in the league close when they probably weren't supposed to because of the makeup of this list.
Mm-hmm.
I think Essendon next year, as early as next year, I think can be contending for finals because I think you've got teams like Richmond. Are Richmond going to have some of these guys continue to be pillaged year after year? I mean, Richmond keeps losing small forwards to other teams because they think, well, they've played at Richmond, they should be a darn good player. They take them. I mean, Ellis has left, Higgins has left. There's
Mm-hmm.
been so many of those Richmond players that have been picked off over the years that it's like eventually teams like that are going to start falling down. West Coast, they're starting to get older. I mean, when you've got Shannon Hearn, you've got McGovern, you've got some of the older legs in that West Coast team. They may come back to it. Does Essendon jump into that spot there? This is an Essendon team. They're going to be fun to watch because they get after it. They go. They may pay for it a little bit on the defensive end a little bit because they leave themselves exposed because they push themselves forward. But in and all, this Essendon team is a fun team to watch. I thoroughly enjoy watching their games. Yes, they lose Adam Sod to the Carlton Blues, but they have got themselves a perfect replacement in Nick Hind. He has come in, taken Sod's spot, and has almost improved from Saad's performances this year. He's been one of the best defenders for the Essendon Bombers, both forward and back.
Mm-hmm.
And then Darcy Parish, who would have known that when Shield went down with that injury early in the year, that Darcy Parish would step into that and absolutely flourish. I mean, right now, Darcy Paris is making this Essendon front office look absolutely like geniuses because
Straight
they
up.
let him go into the midfield and he is absolutely paying them back tenfold. I mean, if I'm Zach Merritt, who's up for contract this year,
Mhm.
if I look around, yes, this season may not be a final season, but if I'm Zach Merritt, I see all this young talent around me that's getting better round by round. I think they can keep him in Bomberland, and I think he's going to be a very happy camper over these next couple of years because I think Essendon could really, really, really contend for finals as early as next year if they can keep this core healthy and keep this core going as well as they have. This is a really good performance
Mhm.
against North Melbourne. Yes, it's North Melbourne, I know, but to put up 141 points and to show the way they did with their kids playing really, really well, that is a performance you have to be proud of as an
Mhm.
Essendon Bomber supporter.
Let's also now look over the another marvelous performance by Tippin Woody. I'm not just saying that name because I can't pronounce it. I want to prove to you guys I can pronounce some of these names. Thank you very much. But also because he, uh, like, if you throw it back, was it against Hawthorn? I believe it was in Tasmania. This guy just puts on the show, and he's some of these goals he kicks you some really sharp angle stuff. So man, I think he's more accurate than anything Fremantle ever hopes they could be at this point. So this Essendon team, young team, a lot of fun to watch. Not winning every game, but they're close, and they almost never lay an egg, which is a good sign.